Chosen ones, if you are watching this right now, understand this: it is not by accident. It is not a coincidence. You were meant to be here. You were meant to hear this message. God has ordained this moment for you. This is your call. A divine summons to step out of the shadows, to embrace the truth that has been burning inside you, and to declare it boldly. No more waiting. No more hesitating. The time is now. Before we dive into this life-changing revelation, I need you to do something. This is not just a video, this is a movement. If you know that you are chosen, if you are ready to rise, take a step of faith right now, hit that like button, subscribe to Bible Peak, and comment below, "I am ready to step out of the darkness and into God's plan." Let this declaration be your first act of faith. The world needs to know that the chosen ones are rising. Now, let's begin. Have you ever felt different? Have you ever sensed that your life was meant for something more, something greater? Have you ever wondered why you've faced trials that others haven't? It's because you are chosen. You were never meant to blend in. You were never meant to walk the same path as the crowd. God has placed a calling on your life, and deep down, you know it. But the world has tried to silence you. It has tried to bury that truth under fear, under doubt, under the weight of rejection. But no more. God is calling you out. He is telling you, step into the light. Speak the truth. Declare who you are. When you acknowledge your chosenness, when you declare it boldly, something powerful happens. Heaven moves on your behalf. God begins to shift things in your life, aligning circumstances, opening doors, and proving to the world that His hand is upon you. But first, you must speak it. You must declare that you are chosen. Why do we hesitate? Why do we hold back? Because fear has been whispering lies into our ears for too long. Fear tells you, what if they don't believe me? What if they mock me? What if I'm wrong? But let me ask you, whose opinion matters more, man's or God's? God has already made His decision about you. He has already chosen you. The world doesn't have to approve it. Your family doesn't have to understand it. Your friends don't have to validate it. God's word is final. The longer you remain silent, the longer you let fear dictate your actions, the more you allow the enemy to keep you from fulfilling your divine purpose. This is your moment to break free. To speak up. To stand tall. You have been set apart. Handpicked by the Creator of the universe. You were not made for mediocrity, you were made to shake nations. Many of you have been waiting. You've been praying. You've been asking God for direction, for clarity, for breakthrough. And today, He is giving you the answer. This is the test of faith before the breakthrough. God will not move until you move. When you publicly proclaim your chosenness, when you step into your divine identity without shame or hesitation, God will confirm it. Think of Moses. Before he could lead the Israelites out of Egypt, he had to stand before Pharaoh and declare, "Let my people go." Think of David. Before he could be king, he had to stand before Goliath and declare, "You come against me with sword and spear, but I come against you in the name of the Lord." Think of Jesus. Before he performed miracles, before he changed history, he stood in the synagogue and declared, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me." Your words have power. When you say, "I am chosen," the spiritual realm shifts. Chains break. Mountains move. The enemy trembles. But you must have the courage to say it. Some of you are afraid of what people will say. You fear the judgment, the laughter, the skepticism. Let me tell you something, the world will always resist what it cannot control. When you step into your divine identity, the enemy will try to silence you. He will use people to mock you, to question you, to make you feel small. But he only attacks what he fears. The enemy knows that if you ever fully embrace who you are in God, you will become a force he cannot stop. You will become unstoppable in faith, in purpose, in calling. So when they mock you, stand stronger. When they doubt you, speak louder. When they reject you, keep walking. Because your chosenness is not for their approval, it is for God's glory. This is not the time to be silent. This is not the time to shrink back in fear. This is the time to rise. God is watching. The angels are watching. The world is watching. What will you do? Will you keep hiding, allowing fear to dictate your steps? Or will you stand up, speak out, and declare to the world, I am chosen by God? If you are ready to take that step, if you are ready to declare your chosenness, then act in faith right now. Subscribe to Bible Peak. Join this movement of faith warriors. White heavy checkmark comment, I am ready to step out of the darkness and into God's plan. This is not just a comment. This is a covenant. A declaration that you refuse to stay silent any longer. This is just the beginning. God is about to move in ways you never imagined. But it starts with you. Will you answer the call? Will you step into your destiny? The time is now. Declare it. Proclaim it. Live it. You are chosen. Fear. It has held so many captive. It has silenced voices that were meant to roar like lions. It has dimmed lights that were meant to shine before nations. And for too long, it has tried to silence you. But fear is a liar. Fear tells you that the world will reject you. That your friends and family won't understand. That people will laugh at you, whisper behind your back, and call you a fool, and you know what? Some of them will, because the world has never known how to handle the chosen. Look at history. Look at the men and women whom God handpicked to change the world. Were they accepted? Were they celebrated? No. They were ridiculed, mocked, persecuted, but they did not back down. Moses stood before Pharaoh, a shepherd confronting a king, and Pharaoh laughed in his face. Yet, Moses did not retreat. He spoke with the authority of God, and that authority broke the chains of an entire nation. Noah built an ark when there was no rain. His neighbors mocked him. They called him crazy. But Noah didn't build for their approval, he built for obedience. And when the flood came, it was his obedience that saved him. Jesus himself, the Son of God, was despised and rejected. He was betrayed, ridiculed, spat upon. But he never wavered. Because he knew his mission, and now, here you are. Chosen by the same God. If they mocked Moses, if they laughed at Noah, if they crucified Jesus, why do you expect the world to welcome you with open arms? They won't, because your light exposes their darkness, your courage threatens their comfort, your calling reminds them of the purpose they have ignored. But none of that matters. Because the world does not determine your destiny, God does. We live in a world obsessed with approval. Social media has conditioned people to crave validation, to measure their worth by how many people agree with them, like them, accept them. But what if God's call on your life sets you apart from the crowd? What if your mission requires you to walk alone? Are you willing to obey, even if no one stands with you? Because the truth is, when God calls, He often calls in isolation. Joseph was thrown into a pit by his own brothers. Elijah stood alone against 450 prophets of Baal. John the Baptist cried out in the wilderness, wearing camel's hair and eating locusts. Do you see the pattern? the chosen ones are rarely embraced by the masses. They are often misunderstood, often outnumbered, often rejected, but they are never abandoned by God, so let them talk. Let them doubt you. Let them reject you, because when God speaks, He does not need the approval of men. He is the author of your story, the one who holds your destiny. And when He has chosen you, nothing, no opinion, no rejection, no criticism, can change His plans. Words have power. Not just in the natural, but in the spiritual. When God created the universe, He spoke it into existence. When Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead, He called him forth. When you declare that you are chosen, heaven moves on your behalf. Some of you have been waiting for a breakthrough, waiting for a shift, waiting for God to open doors. But God is waiting for you to speak, because when you declare your chosenness, you're not just making a statement, you are activating a shift in the spiritual realm. The chains of fear begin to break, the weight of doubt begins to lift, the obstacles standing in your way begin to crumble, because you are aligning yourself with God's truth. And His truth overrides every lie the enemy has spoken over you. Some of you have been believing the lies for too long. I'm not good enough. I don't have what it takes. People won't believe me. What if I fail? Enough. Those are not your words. Those are not God's words. God says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you." Jeremiah 1 verse 5, you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood. 1 Peter 2 verse 9, I have called you by name, you are mine. Isaiah 43 verse 1, who will you believe? The doubts in your mind? The whispers of the enemy? Or the unshakable word of God? When you walk in your calling, it doesn't just change your life, it changes the lives of those around you. You don't realize how many people are watching you, searching for hope, searching for purpose. Some of them are lost, struggling, broken. Some of them are fighting battles you can't even imagine. And when they see you, a warrior, chosen by God, stepping into your destiny without fear, they will be inspired to rise. Your courage will awaken something inside of them. Your obedience will be the seed that leads them to Christ. Never underestimate the power of your testimony. When Peter stepped out of the boat and walked on water, it wasn't just about him. It was about showing the other disciples what was possible through faith. When David stood before Goliath, it wasn't just about his victory, it was about inspiring an entire army to believe in the power of God. When you declare that you are chosen, you are doing more than just speaking words. You are opening the floodgates of faith for others to walk through. Right now, it might not feel like it. Maybe your life feels ordinary. Maybe you don't see the impact you're making, but God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. Moses had a speech problem, Gideon was the least in his family, Esther was an orphan, yet, God used them to shape history, and He will use you, the moment you step into your calling, the moment you boldly declare your chosenness. Heaven takes notice, the angels rejoice, the enemy trembles. And God begins to position you in places you never imagined, opening doors you never saw. Coming, aligning divine connections you never thought possible. This is the power of obedience. This is the power of declaring your truth. Because when you say yes to God, He says yes to you, and nothing, no fear, no doubt, no rejection, can stop what He has planned. So stand tall, walk boldly, speak the truth, because you are chosen. And the world is about to see it. There will always be those who doubt you. People who scoff at the idea that God has set you apart. People who want to see you fail, who watch and wait for the moment you stumble so they can say, "See? You were never chosen." But let me tell you something, they do not have the power to stop God's plan for your life. Their doubt does not define you. Their laughter does not limit you. Their disbelief does not determine your destiny. The only thing that matters is what God has spoken over you. And He has declared, you are chosen. You are set apart. You are called for something greater, so let them talk. Let them mock. Let them question. Because when God moves, He silences every doubter. You don't have to prove anything to them. God will prove it for you. Look through the Bible, and you will see a pattern. Every single person God chose faced opposition. Noah was ridiculed for building an ark on dry land. The people laughed, called him insane. Until the rain came, Joseph's own brothers rejected him, threw him into a pit, sold him as a slave. They thought they had destroyed him. Until the day he sat on the throne of Egypt, second only to Pharaoh, Jesus, perfection in human form, was mocked, beaten, and nailed to a cross by the very people He came to save. But on the third day, He rose. This is how God works. He lets the doubters doubt. He lets the haters hate. He lets the scoffers scoff. And then, He moves in power. And when He does, every knee bows. Every tongue confesses. Every mocker stands in stunned silence. So don't be afraid to declare your truth. Even if they doubt you today, they will see the power of God tomorrow. When you stand firm in your calling, even in the face of ridicule, you are making the most powerful declaration of faith. Faith is not just believing in God when things are easy. Faith is standing tall when the world tries to knock you down. When people question you, when they roll their eyes, when they call you foolish, keep standing, because your faith is proof that God is real. Think of Daniel in the lion's den. The king's advisors thought they had won when they threw him into that pit. But Daniel did not panic. He did not beg. He simply trusted God, and by morning, when the king looked inside, Daniel was still standing, untouched, unharmed, victorious. That is what happens when you refuse to waver. God does not ignore faith like that. He honors it. He rewards it, and He will do the same for you. For too long, some of you have been hiding. You've been afraid to say what's in your heart. Afraid of the judgment. Afraid of the whispers. But listen to me, you cannot stay in the shadows forever. You were not meant to live in fear. You were not called to be silent. You were created for a purpose. And that purpose requires you to step into the light. Look at a city on a hill. It cannot be hidden. Its light shines for miles, calling people toward it. That is what you are meant to be. You were designed to illuminate the darkness, to stand boldly and say, I am chosen by God. To declare His truth, no matter the cost, to speak His name, even when the world tells you to be silent, because the moment you step into the light, things will begin to shift. Doors that were once locked will open. People who once doubted you will start to listen. Situations that seemed impossible will begin to turn in your favor, because God rewards those who step forward in faith. Some of you feel unqualified. You hear this message, and part of you believes it, but another part whispers, I'm not ready. I don't have what it takes. Let me tell you, that is a lie. You already have everything you need. Before Moses ever stood before Pharaoh, God had already given him the staff that would part the Red Sea. Before David ever faced Goliath, God had already given him the strength to fight off lions and bears. Before Esther ever stood before the king, God had already given her the courage to save a nation. And before you ever even knew you were chosen, God had already prepared you for this calling. Everything you have been through, every trial, every struggle, every battle, it has all been training. It has been preparing you for this exact moment. You are not lacking anything. You are fully equipped. You don't need more qualifications. You don't need more approval. You don't need more signs. God has already placed inside of you everything you need to fulfill your mission. All that's left is for you to step forward and walk in it. Here's what happens when you finally embrace your calling. God backs you up. When Peter stepped out of the boat onto the water, the laws of physics should have made him sink. But because of his faith, the impossible became possible. When the woman with the issue of blood reached for Jesus' robe, there was nothing medically that could heal her. But because of her faith, She was made whole when you declare who you are, when you stop running, stop hiding, stop doubting. God will meet you with miracles. It might not happen overnight. It might not happen the way you expect, but it will happen, because God always honors those who trust Him. He will prove your calling. He will silence your enemies. He will open doors no man can shut. But first, you must be bold enough to speak, declare it, believe it, step into it, because the world needs to see what God is about to do in your life. And when He does, even your doubters will have no choice but to say, "Surely, this is the work of God." You are not just an ordinary person. You are not here by accident. You are not another nameless soul wandering through life without purpose. You are chosen. From the moment you took your first breath, God had a plan for you. He set you apart, placed His hand upon your life, and gave you a divine mission. But for too long, you have lived in the shadows, questioning, doubting, hesitating. No more. It is time to step into the light. It is time to walk in your calling. It is time to declare who you are. The world wants to silence you. The enemy wants to keep you in fear. But nothing, no person, no power, no force in hell can stop the plan God has for your life. When you step out in faith, when you publicly proclaim that you are chosen, heaven moves on your behalf. The chains that once held you back, broken, the doubts that once whispered lies in your ear, silenced, the fear that once kept you paralyzed, crushed beneath your feet, because the power of God is within you. Right now, something is stirring inside of you. You feel it, the pull, the call, the fire deep within your spirit. That is God. He is telling you, "Rise, my child. The time is now. No more waiting. No more hiding. Step forward and declare it boldly. I am chosen. I am set apart. I will walk in my divine purpose." And when you do, watch what God does next. Watch how doors swing open that no man can shut. Watch how the impossible becomes possible. Watch how the very people who doubted you will stand in awe of what God is doing in your life. Because this is what happens when you trust in His plan. This is what happens when you say yes to His calling. God is ready to reveal His glory through you. But He is waiting for your voice. He is waiting for you to say, "Lord, I will not be silent. I will not shrink back. I will proclaim the truth of who I am in you." And the moment you speak it, everything shifts, mountains move, barriers break, destinies are unlocked, because the words you speak carry the authority of heaven. When you declare that you are chosen, you are not just speaking into your own life, you are speaking into generations to come. Your courage will inspire others, your testimony will awaken faith, your obedience will set the stage for miracles. This is bigger than you. This is about God's glory. This is your moment. The world is watching. Heaven is watching. Will you stand in faith? Will you walk in obedience? Will you declare that you are chosen? Because when you do, you will see, without a doubt, that God's hand has been upon you all along. So step forward, step into the light, and witness the power of God transform your life. You are chosen, and this is only the beginning.